On the evening of Sunday, November 22nd, 1987, television programming across the Chicago metropolitan area suddenly cut to black. When the signal returned, viewers were faced with a strange, low-resolution broadcast. A figure in a tan business suit and a plastic mask of Max Headroom swayed erratically in front of a rotating piece of corrugated metal. During a second, longer intrusion on public broadcaster WTTW, the audio actually cut through. The masked figure delivered a rapid-fire, eccentric monologue, directly mocking local media executives. At the end of the 90-second transmission, an off-camera accomplice repeatedly struck the hijacker's partially exposed backside with a fly swatter. By the next morning, the footage was airing on national news. The broadcast authority of major networks had been openly bypassed. This was a highly coordinated, illegal override of licensed physical infrastructure. A multi-agency investigation immediately launched. The Federal Communications Commission and the FBI began hunting for the perpetrators, warning of penalties reaching up to $100,000 and a year in federal prison. But investigators hit a wall. The hijackers hadn't broken into any buildings. There was zero physical damage, no electronic telemetry logs to trace, and nobody left physical evidence behind. With zero leads, the case stalled. Because unauthorized frequency interference was classified as a nonviolent telecommunications offense, the 5-year statute of limitations quietly expired in November 1992. Left completely unsolved, the case became a magnet for online sleuths. For decades, internet forums have traded theories about who pulled it off, usually pointing the finger at teenage pranksters or eccentric basement hackers. But the physical realities of late 1980s analog broadcasting tear those theories apart. In 1987, local television stations did not broadcast their terrestrial signals directly from their production studios. Programming generated in the master control room was sent via microwave transmitter to a skyscraper receiver dish. The hijackers exploited the capture effect. When two signals transmit on the same frequency, an analog receiver automatically locks on to the stronger signal, dropping the weaker feed. To execute this override, the perpetrators positioned a mobile transmitter directly along that physical line of sight vector between the local studios and the downtown skyscrapers. They also had to perfectly align their equipment with the specific, unpublicized microwave frequencies utilized by the target stations. Overriding a high-power microwave relay in a major city required tens of thousands of dollars in commercial-grade transmission hardware. For years, the internet's favorite suspects were two local brothers, known online as J and K. The theory claimed they executed the hijack from an apartment using salvaged ham radio equipment. Broadcast engineers dismissed this entirely. A residential hobbyist setup is mathematically incapable of generating the raw microwave power to blind a commercial receiver dish. Another prominent theory points to Eric Fournier, an avant-garde artist who lived in Indiana. He was 19 at the time, and his later video work shared a similar surrealist aesthetic and vocal cadence to the pirate broadcast. But Fournier lacked any formal training in radio frequency engineering. The operation required precise line-of-sight targeting from a specific physical location within Chicago. An out-of-state teenager could not have managed these logistics. The professional broadcast community reached a narrower conclusion. The perpetrators had to be highly skilled industry insiders with after-hours access to commercial transmission hardware. The audio from the broadcast supports this. He mocked sportscasters by name, insulted the corporate parent of WGN, ruling out the basement amateurs. This operation was organized from inside the Chicago television industry. Prior to 1987, networks assumed their transmission lines were safe, simply because the equipment required to interfere with them was prohibitively expensive. But this incident proved that assumption entirely false. To eliminate the physical vulnerabilities of the open airwaves, modern television distribution relies on dedicated, high-speed fiber optic landlines laid deep underground. Even when stations use wireless relays as a backup today, they transmit digital video. Unlike analog signals, digital feeds use encrypted packet structures. If an unauthorized digital signal hits the tower, the receiver simply rejects the unauthenticated packets, outputting a blank signal lost screen. The Chicago operation required an actor, a camera operator, an accomplice, and a radio frequency technician. For nearly 40 years, every member of that team has maintained absolute, unbroken silence. They exploited a brief window in telecommunications history where the brute force of a stronger analog wave could commandeer millions of screens, and they left behind a technically perfect, permanent mystery.